Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Welcome to this AM Upskills webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to just let as a few more people come in, but I'm going to do a quick introduction before I hand over to Michelle to tell you more about herself. To Michelle Worthington, who is our guest today, from Michelle Worthington Aesthetic Health. So Michelle is here really to talk to you about how to make your lockdown more successful for your aesthetic business. She is an independent aesthetic practitioner herself. And really, Michelle kind of found that last year, although it was arguably the most difficult year for a lot of people in their businesses, she actually ended up having a really successful year, was determined to make it work. And got in touch with us to write an article about her journey, which we published last year. And this is a kind of follow-on from that from that article, because there was so much interesting and really useful advice, and lots of great kind of anecdotes and things that Michelle found that really worked for her business. So we thought it would be great to turn this into an Upskills webinar, so she can share some of that with you. So Michelle, I'm going to hand over to you, and you can just do a little bit of an intro about yourself and the business and how we kind of got to this point, and then we'll get going with our chat.
Okay, so hi everyone. So I'm Michelle, as Georgia said. I'm based in Sutton Coldfield. I've been in aesthetics just 3 years now. And it was just before the last lockdown in January that I decided I was going to hand in my notice at the NHS. Various reasons, back problems, but mainly because I had a passion for aesthetics, and I've been reducing my hours at the hospital and building my business behind the scenes, and it just seemed the right time to make that jump. And then, of course, we hit lockdown where I've then got no income from the NHS. I'm not seeing patients because obviously my only income at that point was seeing patients and injecting patients to earn some money. So I kind of found myself having to think outside the box, and I did engage with a bit of help from somebody that I met at Aesthetic Medicine Live, whose name is Richard Crawford Small. He's a business coach, and he basically helped to support me and gave me ideas of how to grow my business through a lockdown. So I kind of got to the point of, like a lot do, I was working from my house, but I was I've got a double garage that was being converted into a clinic. I was absolutely determined that my business wasn't going to fail, because it was my passion, and it's what I knew that I wanted to do for the next 20 odd years. So I had to work out how I was not going to fail, how I was going to earn some money without seeing people, and how I was still going to grow my business. And fortunately, it did happen. And I just thought, as I'm fairly new to the industry, it would be really useful for other practitioners in a similar position to learn what I learned sort of the hard way, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you mentioned your sort of business mentor, Richard Crawford Small. So it's kind of a combination of things that you learn from him and through going on that his sort of program, but there's also a lot of things that I think you were super determined to make it work, weren't you? And there were a lot of things that you really sort of came up with yourself and tried that proved to be really successful. So if I forgot to mention, if anyone's got any questions for Michelle, please do drop them in the chat box, and I will ask her at the end, or maybe just kind of interject if it's appropriate. So Michelle just sent me over a few kind of the key sort of messages, tips, advice that we went through in her article. So I think we're just sort of going to go through them, and Michelle will just talk through what worked for her and share any advice or anything that you can easily implement. And a lot of this stuff is really easily implementable. So first of all, your key thing was really about just keeping going, wasn't it? And not burying your head in the sand, and not being quiet?
Yeah, so basically one of the main things that Richard says is to do live videos and for people to see you. You're the face of your business. And I'd never been live, and I found it quite a daunting thing, because although I have actually done drama and like in GCSE and A level, but actually, you know, that's 20 years ago now, and it was just quite daunting to talk to an audience that isn't actually there. So rather than just sort of randomly chat, I decided to do Physiology Fridays, where basically every Friday I kind of set myself up to the task, and I'd sort of promote that I was going to do it to make myself do it, that I would go live on a Friday and talk about something that either a customer had asked about, or so, you know, say one week it was just about facial arteries, why to choose, how to choose an injector. That kind of just led to me growing in confidence in front of the camera. I was even at that point using my daughter's art easel as a camera stand. I'd not got a ring light, I'd not got a holder. It was just kind of winging it as I went along, but I was starting to get more interaction. And then as that continued, we had the, I want to say Jubilee, it was VE Day. So I couldn't do my Physiology Friday, so I did a Saluma Saturday and discussed my LED light. And from then, the CEO and director of Saluma got in touch with me, and that then led to a live sort of interview with him, which then continued to get my profile up. I mean, there was no interview from my end that actually could have gone any worse, because what happened was I'd done a bit of research on him. I knew he started in the sort of working in a motorbike shop, so I thought, I'll start with that, clear any tension. But it was actually one of the hottest days of the year, and I was in my conservatory and my iPhone overheated, cut out halfway through the interview. So it was stop, start, stop, start. So then I ended up with my phone within 2 pieces of frozen pita bread, trying to cool it down. Well, I can still, I know, yeah, I was not giving up on this interview. And then, so my phone then got back into action. So then I ended up in the living room, sat on my sofa holding my phone up, and continued with the interview. And then actually, once it had, he was just talking in the background about the light, saying, there's connection issues in the UK. But I almost needed that, because it just showed me that it doesn't matter how bad an interview can go, it still actually was really good content that I could repurpose.
Yeah. And then, so that kind of leads into engaging in social media and keeping engaged. So what else did you do in the social media realm, which is obviously, I think, a lot of people can find quite overwhelming when you haven't done it before? So that videos being one thing, but how else did you start using social media?
Well, social media wise, I've always been sort of on Facebook, but not particularly on Instagram. And the same as I didn't even have a website before lockdown. So first of all, I made sure that I did post every day. But second of all, there's a gentleman called Rick O'Neill, and he helps to give advice. It's called AE Digital. So I got in touch with him to ask about how to build a website and how to sort of get into the Google rankings. So I bought, I think it was £59, something called Google Juice, which is a program that he'd made. And then I was also having a go at building a website, because I didn't have the funds to pay anybody.
Okay.
And although it wasn't the best website in the world, actually, I was quite pleased with it. But I did know once I did have funds, I would outsource that. So I did the Googled juice, and then this is something that I did find important, and I just want to pass on because now I feel like I'm winning this lockdown. Automation, and automation is the key, because at the end of the very first lockdown and November lockdown, I was still having to contact people who wanted to book in. They were messaging me, I was messaging them back, and time was becoming quite, I was running out of time. It's like I say, time, it was from Daniel Priestley's Time is Your Great, oh no, it's Jason Greystone, I think. Anyway, time is your greatest asset. And actually, it really is. So now, all I need to do, now that I've got automation from the Automate programme, I'm getting in touch with my main patients that sort of come very regularly. But then anybody else, I'll be able to just open up my calendar and they can book in through my website. So it kind of just cuts out that time. So that was really important. Mm-hmm. And then obviously social media wise, just don't bombard people with before and after pictures, because they're in the middle of a pandemic. They don't really want to see what they can't have.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Engage with them, tell them that you feel for them. I did a live about 2 weeks ago now, saying about I was finding homeschooling really difficult. I've got 3 children. Let's just recognise that we all have down days, and I was having a day of, I was not riding that wave, and I just kind of felt that I just wanted to go onto social media, because I do find that a lot of social media is a bit of an act, and you have to be seen to be good and looking great and feeling great all the time, and actually that's not true. And within business, I think if people like, know and trust you, then that's how I want my business to kind of organically grow. I don't want to be seen to be somebody that I'm not. And I do have down days. So, and actually, then it was really sweet. I had a bunch of flowers delivered off one of my patients. And I also then had, it was called Entrepreneur Tea. And it was just a random act of kindness from one of my patients. And it just said, your videos have been really good for me. I've been engaging with them. And I'm struggling with homeschooling too, but I think that you're doing really, really well. And then there was 8 tea bags, all with entrepreneurial quotes, and it was just really nice. And it just shows that you don't have to always be perceived as what I think the industry has made a lot of it to be.
Yeah, so there's other ways of engaging with patients whilst you can't actually see them for treatments outside of you as an aesthetics practitioner, and all you kind of talk about is aesthetics.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to keep in touch with your patients. So in the first lockdown, the first thing that I did actually was I went through my books and I just phoned anybody who was on an antidepressant, and I just phoned for a chat, just to touch base, see how they were doing, just to let them know that obviously I am a nurse, I am at home, and if they did need to talk, I was available. Then after that, I kind of, some of those talks would obviously come round to business and some didn't. But then after that, then I got in touch with I like to call them my avatars. So it's people that have the same headspace as me that come to clinic. They don't kind of ask for discounts. They're happy with the advice that I give. They're happy to pay what I believe I'm worth.
So is that kind of your ideal patient?
Yeah. I mean, that's something actually I'm quite happy to mention a bit later on. But so in the first lockdown, I kind of worked through who is it that I want to treat, because up to that point, I was kind of just treating anybody, even if, sometimes you might have someone that contacts you and you just get a bit of a feeling that they're going to be awkward. They're not whatever you do, you're not going to meet their expectations. They're going from practitioner to practitioner. Why is that? Why are you suddenly the practitioner that they're going to stay with? Are they then going to be in my chair slagging another practitioner off that I know that is actually really good? And I'm thinking, well, oh dear, next it'll be you sat in someone else's chair talking about me.
Yeah.
But I didn't quite have the business head at that point to be able to say no. Whereas actually being coached and having more confidence within myself as a businesswoman, actually they're the people that you need to say no to, because you need, I only want to go to work ever and enjoy my job now. You know, I've been in the NHS, I've had various different positions that, you know, some days you go to work and you love it, and other days it's like, oh God, oh, you're just not feeling it. Whereas actually with my own business, I want to go to work every day and feel like I'm not actually working. I'm just having a nice time with nice people, doing what I love, and the bonus is that I'm earning money. And if you've got like a bear, as we call them, that's not going to make my life easy. You know, it can be stressful enough within aesthetics if you know, doing a new treatment, or the last thing that you want is to be doing it on somebody that ideally shouldn't actually be sat in the chair anyway.
Yeah, and then that kind of feeds in as well to what you were saying to me before, and in the article about you started charging for consultations, which you weren't doing before, were you? And that also had to do with perhaps those patients who you didn't feel like were really valuing your time.
Yeah, so, you know, sometimes a consultation can take 20 minutes, and I think they were just people trying to find out your prices. So the first thing I learned is don't give out my prices. If they really want you, they'll get to know you, and then the price comes after. I never respond to someone who just says, how much do you charge for this? They're not going to be my ideal person. They want me. They should want me before they want the price. And then, secondly, just to kind of make sure that anybody that was using my time was serious about using my time, then I'd learned to value my worth. And actually, I started charging for consultations. Now, I wasn't happy to take that then off a treatment price. And if, just for example, there was something in their medical history that would mean that they're not suitable for the procedure that they were coming for, then actually, because I am me, some people probably wouldn't, but I would reimburse them that, because they have paid it and they were clearly wanting that. Or I could obviously advise them, well, you can't have this, but actually this is the way forward for you. But it just kind of would get rid of any time wasters, really.
And did you find that you were still having a sort of decent number of people wanting to have consultations, even though you then started charging for them?
Yeah, I had, so the first lockdown, I got 8 new patients that had never even walked in the door. So then by the time that they then actually came in August, I knew them, they'd paid me some money. I really love now, even when I can work, I do consultations via Zoom. Like infection control, it makes sense. But B, if I'm not the practitioner for them, there's no need for them to sort of use my precious clinic time up on a consultation I could do through the computer. Yeah,
exactly.
And another way that I earned money in the first lockdown was I would get everybody's before and after pictures and just have a look at what skincare they were using. So I got in touch with the protocol rep, because I've always been sort of interested in taking collagen supplements myself, but I just felt like it was something that I'd wanted to introduce to clinic. So I got in touch with Rebecca and started selling protocol. And I'd also previously just selling Tropic, because I've been very fortunate actually with my skin, but I was also very naive about skin. I kind of was a nurse, and I'd just kind of gone into doing sort of Botox, fillers, and naively I hadn't really thought about the foundations of what I was doing. And obviously the best people are going to get is if they've got a good skincare routine. So I would just get in touch with people and just say, right, I've looked at your skin, I've recently done a course, what do you currently use? And if it was nothing, I'd just sort of get them started on a sort of cleansed home moisturize. It could be delivered to their house, or I could sort of drop ship it and sort of do a social distance delivery and say hi to people. And then I did slowly sort of build my website as well. So like now I've got an online shop, so people can just go and purchase that. And then I also did Wow Fusion training, just obviously because I wanted to introduce some more skin treatments, but also that was, you know, it was good to give me a better knowledge of aesthetics. You know, I think it was, like I said, I'd kind of just gone into it slightly all guns blazing on the injection side, but not seeing the bigger picture. And because we were in lockdown, I had that time that I wouldn't have had previously to focus on, okay, what is it that I want? What do I need to do? Sort of financially, but also on a personal level. What have I learned? Okay, I've been in business this long. What am I missing? Because clearly it's something. And it was, like, you know, it was skincare.
So then because you also set up skincare treatment subscriptions. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works and how that's been like an additional revenue earner for you during lockdown?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing that I did before I even started subscriptions was hiring out my Saluma lights. So I've got 2 Saluma lights. So anybody that had treatments with me and went under the Saluma, for whatever reason, I got in touch with them. Then when I delivered the Saluma, I would give skincare samples and just say, right, try this, see what you think. And if you sort of like it, then obviously you might want to buy it. And then I would just discuss with them about sort of the use of collagen with hyaluronic acid capsules, or Protocol does an amazing, it's called number 16 super greens. So like I've got a couple of ladies that would talk to me, they've got IBS, or they've got like stomach problems, or if they're going through the menopause, I would be able to sort of just recommend things that would help them, or like people that were due to trough treatments that I couldn't do. There's like skin radiance capsules that are really good for dark circles under the eyes. So I was just recommending stuff. They would buy a tub of these tablets, which was a 30-day supply. Then when it got to about day 24, I would phone them. How are you getting on with the tablets? Are you still taking them? And 9 times out of 10, yeah, they're really good. I've really noticed a difference with X, Y, and Z. Oh, would you like to start a subscription then? So then I know what I need to order every month for them. They're paying me money directly into my bank account. And it's just nice and easy, because you're getting money without them particularly doing the work for it.
Yeah, it's like a sort of passive income, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's actually grown quite nicely, just ticks along nicely in the background. So the company can either deliver them directly, but I actually prefer to have them delivered to me. And I do package them up nicely. I'll put a little card in for every 6 purchases. Then I'll put them a little gift voucher in, or a little like thank you treat of like just to let them know that they're valued as well. Because actually, I think patients need to know that you do value them, because I'm not the only practitioner around.
Yeah, and I think the thing about when you were renting out your Saluma LED, that's a really interesting sort of additional revenue earner that I've heard a few people talk about over the last year, but I don't think many people realise that or consider that that's perhaps something they can do if they do have that equipment themselves. And obviously it would have to be something, you know, like with LED, you can't really do any damage, and obviously it'd have to be something that you know, patients were able to to do with themselves. But I think you mentioned to me before that to sort of do that only with those patients who you know and trust really well, and you know they're going to listen to your protocol that you give them.
Yeah, I did obviously. They'd used it before in clinics. That was the first thing. They knew it benefited them, and I knew that they would potentially want it. Then the second thing, obviously of importance to me, was that they don't abuse my equipment. So it's you that's hiring it, not your sister, son, wife. Don't. And I expected, it would obviously get used every day, because if someone's hiring it for a week, and if they're coming into clinic, they tend to come 2 to 3 times a week. If you're hiring something for a week, let's face it, you're going to use it probably every day. But my point was, don't abuse it, but use it for what you've had it off me for, because that's obviously trust.
Yeah.
Then the other thing was, I would give I've forgotten what they're called, but like barrier protect. So Salima provided barrier protection bags. So obviously I'd provide enough of them for the person that was using it. And it has gone quite well. And then of course they're the ones who already this time are just straight in touch.
Yeah.
So it's just little things. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I'm earning as much as I would be if I had an open clinic, but actually, compared to the stress of the first lockdown when suddenly I had no income, now have people on skincare subscriptions, and also I now have people on treatment like package subscriptions as well. So that was something that I started in the first lockdown that's been really successful in the clinic. So you can obviously go, your patients anyway, but literally go through the pictures, go through what they've had in the last 12 to 18 months and work out what are they going to need in the next 12 months. Let them know what that is, split it up into monthly subscription cost, excuse me. So just for argument's sake, it's £1,200. Do you want to pay £100 a month? Because that's what you're going to need. So, I'm being paid now for people that will have a treatment in August, for example.
Yeah.
Easier for them to spread the cost. And it's nice for me that actually their products will be paid for before they've even walked into clinic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of these tips and this advice is also just kind of quite good sort of business practice, and it's really helpful ideas for people to, like you say, just to always make sure that you're organized, or that you've got like a steady income, even when we're back opening clinic. And like, obviously now we have a date, but I think we would all be quite naive if we said, there's no way we're ever going to go back into lockdown, or there's no way that there won't be a bit more stop-start. So even though we're hopefully coming to the end of this period now, a lot of these things, like as you say, working out, having people on treatment subscriptions and working out, what they're going to need and when, and planning in, and always keeping on top of your patients' sort of changing needs is I think a really good advice anyway.
And also, if you were looking to do subscription plans, things like there's different ones on the market, but Go Cardless is really good, because if, for example, they just decide not to pay, you get acknowledgement that they've not paid that month. So you're not then going through your bank statements, sort of ticking people off, using up your time. Yeah, there's a small fee. I can't remember how much it is, but it was the best one that I found. So Go Cardless. And yeah, it's just nice that it just ticks you over. And it's all, if someone just doesn't pay, you get a notification that they've not paid. And that's really good.
And then let's talk a little bit more about some of the things that that other people can take on from the business training that you did. Because even if people aren't necessarily in a position to take on a business coach like you did with aesthetic entrepreneurs, or with Richer Core for Small, and you had some help from with Rick O'Neill as well for the more sort of digital stuff. If people aren't in a position to start actually paying for that, I know there are a few little bits and pieces that you can recommend for free that people can get a bit of motivational ideas and some short courses.
I mean, if my argument, because I had to argue with myself to pay Richard. I'm not going to lie, but I almost had to I did have to ask the question, can I afford not to pay him?
Right.
And I came up basically with, yes, no, what's the benefits, what aren't the benefits? And actually I decided I couldn't afford not to pay him, because I had to, like I said, with your patients, and you have a feeling in your gut if they're not the right patient for you. I'd met him and I just had the feeling that he was the right person to help me grow, because I was in a very nurse mindset, which isn't asking for money, it's not selling things, it's doing a treatment and walking away.
Yeah.
And I needed really to change my mindset from nurse to business. However, if you're already in a business mindset but you feel that you need some sort of help and support, that if you go on to, it's www.thematrix, which is maetrix.com, you can get free podcasts, you can get free short courses, and it kind of just gives you a bit of an introduction to, if you were to go into the realms of coaching, kind of what you would be getting into. And yeah, so the Matrix has slowly actually grown, because he had to suddenly go digital as well, because obviously he couldn't go into conferences because they weren't around anymore. So it's been good to watch things like that grow. But it's the main thing that I've taken from that is about repurposing material.
Okay.
Because on the Matrix, he's got videos from, say, 2 or 3 years ago, but he's been able to repurpose them. So it just also helped to highlight that you can repurpose things. And that's where things like Clubhouse, which is new out, I'm dipping my toe in the water, but I want to know that if I do a video, it can go onto Facebook, Instagram. If I want to make it into a podcast, I could make it into a podcast. If I want it on YouTube, it's all about making the most of that hour. What can you do with that will help. And with Clubhouse, Clubhouse is a new, I don't know if I'll just tell people what it is. So it's basically, it's almost like a radio for practitioners, or for anything. But then you put in obviously what you're interested in. So there's been some amazing talks on there about sort of laser skincare, just things that I'm interested in. But then once you've done that talk, so I did one with a lady called Nisha on male skincare, and it was really good. It went really well. Had some great feedback from it. But once you've ended the chat, it's gone. So yeah, it's that, like, I'm not quite sure if I like it or not.
Yeah, because we were talking about that the other day, weren't we? And that was a really good point that you made, that with all of these new sort of social media platforms, or when you're figuring out what's the best thing for you to do for your business, is to bear in mind whether or not you can repurpose it. And then I didn't know, like, until you said that once your session on Clubhouse is done, you've got no way of downloading it or going back in to check stats and how much engagement you had, how many people were in there like listening and interacting. So that's I think a really good point to remember, is that, do things that, or spend your time doing things that will continue to pay you dividends after.
I mean, it was good, because for me it wasn't valueless, because I know that one of my next things that I'm doing is introducing male skincare packages,
right?
And trying to focus on, at the moment, 95% of my clients are female, and I kind of just want to drop that. you know, men are quite why aren't men having the treatments? Men still want to feel good. And I think the men that do come to clinic all tend to be on the younger side, whereas actually that's because like people of sort of, so I was a teenager and that in the 90s, and it just wasn't macho for boys to sort of take care of themselves. And I think that as they've obviously gotten older, it's not macho to put an SPF on and protect your skin, and it's not macho to go and you know, have a bit of Botox, but actually why not? So that's like, so it was really good for me to kind of just update my knowledge on skin and collagen and how it ages differently to a lady's. So it wasn't a complete, I couldn't say it was a waste of time, but it's how it can be repurposed, and that's just something to be mindful of. I would say only do talk, you know, if you feel the need to go on there, either obviously if you've got loads of time on your hands, great, but if you haven't, have a good think about what you're going to talk about. Don't just waste an hour talking drivel.
Okay, cool. So I'm just a bit conscious of time, but before we go, I just wanted to ask you about collaboration, because that's something that I think was super interesting that you started doing. So can you just tell us a little bit about how you started collaborating with another local business and why you would recommend people do that and what they should consider?
So the first thing about collaboration is don't be scared of it. If you do it in the right way with the right person, all it's going to do is grow your business. So the collaboration that I do is with a lady called Sally Wagstaff, and she does laser, her main thing is laser hair removal, and she does medical grade skincare. And obviously, as I've previously said, skincare has been my weakness, so she would take on the medical grade side if there was somebody that I felt needed a bit more help. And she doesn't inject, I inject. So it actually seemed the perfect collaboration. And we met through, we were both members of Aesthetic Entrepreneurs, and we just met through the internet. We hadn't physically met each other, we were just chatting, exchanged numbers. You know, obviously we knew we were local to each other and we'd both heard of each other, but neither of us had really thought about a collaboration. And actually now so I've got a second treatment room, so I'm going to be hiring that out to a lash lady. So obviously hopefully she'll have some of my patients, I'll have some of hers. But then also with aesthetics, of course, it's not just about looks. I mean, obviously that's how people see it, but it's also about general wellness. So obviously with mental health problems being on the rise, I'm also actually currently looking to collaborate with a local sort of nutritionist or personal trainer, someone just to give my patients that extra bit of wellness. You know, it's not just about this. it's the whole person. And I think that within aesthetics, a lot of that is missing, and I think people are scared. They think people are going to take their patients, and that's not how it is. If you find the right person, we refer to each other. Now, how you get financial reward for that is obviously entirely up to how you both decide to do it. So for me and Sally, we don't do it as a percentage of what that person spends. Obviously, laser hair removal is a package of quite a few and can go into the thousands, whereas they would spend thousands with me over a few months, years. So how we've done it is just per person that gets referred, and they, once they've had that first treatment, so you know that they're in, then like Sally gets a payment from me to say thank you for referring that person.
Okay.
And then we just make sure we don't step on toes. The only thing we both do Wow Fusion, and we both sell Protocol. That's the only thing that we both do. So it's just about.
And then those elements you would just keep to yourself. Like, what would happen in that case, sense, if you say referred someone to her for laser and then they wanted to purchase product, say like protocol product through her, has that kind of thing ever come up yet?
The only thing that came up was somebody actually that wanted a wow, that had come to me for Botox, and then we were talking about that she was having the Illumia skincare for pigmentation, and she was like, what do you do? And I told her, and I'll have that. And I just said, well, actually Sally does that, and that's the other thing, we make sure that we charge the same price for it. Because obviously if I was cheaper than Sally, then it'd be like, oh well, I'll use you. Or so just make sure that you're on a par. And we just came to, if she goes back to Sally, that's fine. If she uses me and it's something really that Sally's thing, then we kind of would split 50-50.
Okay. Okay, interesting.
Just making sure actually that you both have, you both got to trust each other.
Yeah, of course.
That's very, very important. Sally's been stung in the past, so it's quite hard for her to go into another collaboration. But second of all, just make sure that you're open and honest from the start, because that thing with the wow and how much, what do we do, that came up after it had happened, and it was like, I could have just said, oh okay, I'll do you a wow and take the money, but I didn't. I said, this is your option, and then I let Sally know what was happening, and then like most things you learn as you go along, and that was something that we hadn't actually discussed. So
yeah, so good to kind of get those things ironed out beforehand where possible.
And just chat, we're both in business, we both want it to work. It's not, if the person lives just round the corner from me and wants to come to me for something that she would pay the same price for as travel to Sally's, then it does make sense.
Yeah.
She now, that patient now trusts us both. There's nothing then to say that the next time she needs a wow, she wouldn't be having a medical grade chemical peel or something and then booking at Sally's. So it is just about trust. But don't be scared to do it.
Yeah, and it's something as well that you can even do like outside of your immediate industry, isn't it? Like you were saying about, collaborating with people who are more in like the health and wellness side, but then showing that your patients that you kind of really care about their health, like holistically.
And that's it, so I've just started I've not actually taught an article about nursing and how basically slight bit of backstabbing which you do get in the NHS of doing aesthetics, and it's not real nursing, but actually I think it is. And although obviously my company name, Michelle Worthington Aesthetic Health, I kind of needed the H on the end to spell moi, but it was important to me that I do use the health part of my business name, because I am a nurse. And as you grow into business, when people do come for consultations, if they are on medication, you do have to make sure that it's not kind of like a body dysmorphia, or they want more in their lips. Actually, do you need more? Let's go back to your initial consultation, because you told me you wanted a nice subtle look. You have this, that's not what you said. What's changed? And that's still part of health. Why have they suddenly started seeing themselves differently to how they did when they first came?
Absolutely.
Now, sometimes it might just be that they're going through the menopause and they have lost a lot of collagen and elastin, and although they have got a mill in their lips, maybe they could take a little bit more because they've got smoker lines coming now because they've lost some elastin. But it's actually just always thinking about going back to that reset button of, you are using needles, you are treating a person, whether you call them a patient, whether you call them a client, whether you call them a customer, they're coming to you for advice and help for something.
Exactly.
And on the whole, that's health.
Absolutely. Cool. We've got a few questions for you that here we go. I'm gonna go through. Kind of just jumping around a bit. So someone has, first of all, said, wow, thank you for admitting that you were naive when it came to the skincare side of things when you come in. And I think that's important to mention, because a lot of people don't want to admit, when it comes to, you know, business and a competitive industry, don't want to admit that they have perhaps made mistakes or been naive and not thought about something, and not had this all-encompassing expertise straight away. So that person just wanted to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's like I was a theatre nurse in emergency theatre, but to get to emergency theatre, I'd done vascular, colorectal, general surgery, maternity. You don't just suddenly become good at being in an emergency theatre. You have to grow into it. And I'm not just good at aesthetics overnight. I've had to grow into it.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, someone else saying, hey, lovely to hear your story. Okay, someone has asked, when we were talking about you hiring out the Saluma, how much would you charge for a week's hire of the LED, and do you have a contract?
I'm actually currently writing a contract, purely because I've just felt a little bit edgy. One of them came back slightly damaged. Right. Now, that might be because it has been used a lot, but I know that it didn't have that problem when it went. So I charge, it depends on which one they use. So I've got the Saluma Pro, which does, it's the larger one, and I charge £150 for 5 days for that. Or they can have it for £250 for 2 weeks. Then for the Saluma Face, that's just a smaller device, and it's just a little bit more awkward, but I charge £120 for that, or 120 or 220.
Okay, cool. And
the barriers, I'll just highlight the barriers that come only fit the Saluma Pro. So if you do have the Saluma Face, I still obviously send out the barriers, but also with a bulldog clip, because if you actually pull it tight, almost like a hair bubble at the end, I've just got a little one here actually. So just one of these mini bulldog clips. Obviously it's wipeable anyway, not that I'd use it for, you know, for one person who comes back, it'll go in the bin. But yeah, you can just sort of twist it on, clip it at the end, and then the barrier will fit all sizes of the Saluma.
Okay, cool. And that's sort of like a protective sheath almost that you would put on it.
Yeah, it's more for infection control. I mean, obviously it comes back and it gets completely sort of disinfected my end anyway, but at the same time, you know, people are breathing on it, and it's nice to know that it has had a protective barrier on it for each use.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Someone else has said, so my weakness is skincare. Where would you recommend courses for this that are suitable for our industry? I'm looking to expand on this, but I'd like to know the best courses for aesthetics. And I guess that, I mean, you said you do Wow Facial, which is for people who don't know, is kind of like an all-in-one sort of multi-step facial treatment, isn't it?
Wow Facial is a combination of like mesotherapy. It's just like very mini microneedles, and you make a cocktail for that person. I'm also quite fortunate that through, I actually, I don't know if the right word is headhunted, because that makes me feel embarrassed, but I got a job through being headhunted at Cosmetic Courses. So I'm very fortunate that, say like my Profilo training, which is coming up, and my PRP training, I will be doing with Cosmetic Courses in books. But also, I think like most things, there's good nurses, bad nurses, good beauticians, bad beauticians. As a nurse, I certainly wouldn't rule out going to a reputable beautician. They often know more about skin than I do.
Absolutely, yeah.
I just think I think the problem let's not get into the medic, non-medic debate, but don't always hold yourself back to, oh, it has to be for this. Why does it? Why do you have to go to a medical establishment to learn something that's physiological?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And actually, I learn a lot through. I could reach up there now. I love doing art. I draw faces. I draw skin. I have like anatomy and physiology colouring books on all. But that's how I learn. So yeah, that's what I would say. Is obviously go to your cosmetic courses. You've got Wow Skincare. You've got obviously various training places up and down the country, but given if you are open to ideas, I certainly know beauticians that know more about skincare than me.
Yeah, and I would sort of say as well that you could come at it from the angle of what skincare brand you want to offer in clinic, and then do lots of research about those brands, what fits in with you and your business, and what you sort of believe in and the results that you'd like to get for your patients, and then go through that route of doing their training.
I don't want to be a jack of all trades. I love injecting, and I give what I believe and my patients are good natural results. But obviously skincare has to come into it now. I know that Claire Williams, the sort of director of WOW, is doing like SPFs, and is now like in the 6-step WOW. That was my introduction to chemical peels. I know that they're not as harsh as some that say like Illumia or Abaji do. But at the same time, if you do your research, so Illumia products, for example, they're more widely available to the beauty industry as well. So if you just wanted medical grade that they can only get from you, then you need to go for the Abaji range, because that has to be through a medical practitioner. So whoever's asked the question, it depends how much and how far you want to go.
And there are also courses, I mean, that you can just do in, say, peels, microneedling as sort of like separate course modules as part of a wider qualification. So like the British Institute of Aesthetic Medicine has a peels course, a needling course, and a launching sort of devices courses as well, different modules. So yeah, I would say have a look around at some of the reputable training providers in the industry and see what's out there, and see.
Yeah. And a lot of them are free. During the last lockdown, Linton Lasers, I haven't got a laser, but again, through Aesthetic Entrepreneurs, I got chatting through the chat with Hayley Jones, and she's in the sales team. I'm not quite sure of her job title, to be honest, but I know that she's in the sales team at Linton Lasers. And they put on some really interesting training. It doesn't have to be paid for. A lot, especially through lockdown, a lot of big companies actually want to help smaller companies. So use your time wisely. Obviously, like I said, we all work in waves, and we have busy days and quiet days, and some days where you're on fire, and some days where you just want to put your head under the duvet. But at the same time, when you do, if you're booking onto things, do them. And yeah, so there are free courses out there. I know Abaji in the last lockdown did some free training sessions if you were going to invest with their products.
Yeah, and like all the brands have been doing sort of like free webinars to find out more, like taster sessions, as you say, about the courses if you were actually to take them on. And there's so much information and advice out there. And you can also ask other practitioners, like you say, like great beauty therapists, what they use, or great aesthetic practitioners who maybe specialize in peels or are an ambassador for a skincare brand or a KOL, or engaging. I think definitely. Michelle, I won't keep you much longer. We just have one more question. So just jumping back to the collaboration you have set up with Sally, someone's asked, how much is the fixed referral fee that you two have between you? if you wouldn't mind sharing that, which obviously you don't have to, but maybe or maybe advice on how to work that out for someone else on personally.
Yeah, I think I'd rather not say, purely because obviously, like I said, it's about trust, and I've not got her here to say yes, that's you can disclose that amount. But
how did you work it out? Like, what would your advice be on working it out for someone else?
So we basically just sat in her garden, she made some food, we had a drink, and we just had a chat about, basically, it's a lot of this is kind of about knowing your worth. So if you just come up with a figure that you'll be happy with, it might be £100, it might be £200. But as long as you're both happy with that figure. So the difference with me and Sally is the longevity of treatments, which is how we came up with our figure, because predominantly if someone goes to Sally and they're not interested in skincare, they might just be having 8 to 10 sessions of laser and then they've gone. Whereas if Sally refers someone to me, I might have them for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
In the long run, they actually spend more.
Yeah.
So it's actually just a case of, depending who you collaborate with, what is it worth to you?
Yeah.
And just be honest, don't be shy to talk money.
Yeah, especially if it's someone you're going into a sort of partnership with.
Say if Sally had come out, like if we'd have said 50 quid or something, we'd have been like, what?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there's no point doing it, is there, unless you're going to get something that you think is valuable from it.
Yeah, but at the same time, don't be ridiculous. But do something that works for you.
Yeah.
I mean, at the moment, for example, you know, I'm halfway through a course of laser treatment with Sally. Given lockdown, it's clearly not happened, but then she's going to be having Botox with me. So then, like, obviously we've had to discuss, okay, so do we take that off the monthly fee? Do we pay it as if it was a treatment? So it's, again, you've got to sit and have the conversation.
Cool. Well, that's probably, that's definitely everything we've got time for. I'm just going to quickly share my screen because, hold on, which screen is it? I just wanted to quickly flash up Michelle's details in case anyone wanted to get in touch, find out a little bit more about her business and what she does. And also, Michelle, if you'd be open to anyone just asking you any more questions they might have about anything we've spoken about.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I would hope I'm approachable. I feel like I am. So
I think you're very approachable.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to get in touch, ask any questions, even if it's about like any of the sort of inspirational books that I've read that I've found useful, just get in touch. Absolutely fine. And
cool.
Someone's just popped up on my screen. Fantastic talk. Thank you.
That's nice to hear. Thank you for your feedback, everyone. Cool. So those are Michelle's details. Thank you so much, Michelle, for your time this morning. That's been really interesting, and I think, evidently really engaging for people. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and we will be back on Friday with another Upskills webinar, and we'll share details of that with everyone soon.
Thanks for having me, Georgia.
No worries. Thanks, Michelle. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.